audible, sir? Okay, thank you for your response in the chat box. So, sir, in the last week, we have covered the basic GST, why there is requirement of GST, what do you mean by the GST, what are the various type of ledgers, what do you mean by outward supply, what do you mean by inward supply, output tax, input tax, composition scheme, normal scheme, the reverse charge mechanism, the forward charge mechanism. Okay. Then after we have started our discussion on the basics of terms supply include sale, exchange, barter, transfer, lease, rental, disposal, agreed to be disposal as for 7, as for supply. We have done the schedule number 1 without consideration. Also, the activity or transaction will be treated as supply. We have also done the schedule number 2. A particular supply will be considered as supply of goods or supply of services. And we have done our discussion on schedule number 3, neither supply of goods nor supply of services. Then after, sir, we have started our discussion on section number 8. Number 8 is a mixture of 00. So this section is related to mixed and composite supply, section number 8. So in that case, we have done what do you mean by composite supply, what do you mean by principal supply, how we can bifurcate both these supply, what do you mean by naturally bundled. And also we have done section number 9, imposing fine, that is charging section under GST. CGST. Intra-state supply, GST will be applicable not exceeding at the rate of 20% except the alcoholic liquor for human consumption. On 5 petroleum product, GST will be applicable on a future rate. Also, we have done the reverse charge mechanism and section number 9, subsection 3, that your reverse charge mechanism will not be included in your turnover calculation. And sir, most important, we have also done the complete list of goods and services on which the reverse charge mechanism is applicable. That means you have to check the goods and the services. If such type of goods and services are there in the profit and loss account, then we have to ask for the payment of reverse charge mechanism. Sir, all these things, the last 5-day discussion is okay for everyone? Sir, my voice is slow. Now my voice is perfect. Now it's perfect. Okay. Thank you, sir. So, in the last week, we have done the basics of GST, the term supply, the value of the composite supply and mixed supply, and the charging section, section number 9. Okay. Now, in our today's session, we are going to start our discussion on certain further concepts. Okay. In our last session, we have done the bifurcation about the types of registration. One is regular, another is composition. Okay. So, sir, today we'll try to understand this composition. In a detailed way. Then after we'll discuss about the exemptions, and then after we'll discuss about the TOS, that is time of supply. Okay. So first we'll discuss about composition scheme. Sir, under GST, total 2 schemes are available. One is regular, another is composition. What do you mean by regular scheme? Sir, regular scheme, that means you have to pay the GST as per the rate notification, and you are eligible to claim the input tax credit on your inward supply. That is what is the scenario. Okay, that is called as my regular scheme. Yes, definitely. And composition scheme means, sir, in trade and industry, there are certain taxpayers who are working at a very lower scale. Okay, and they are not able to maintain the books of accounts, they are not able to maintain the details related to their purchase, they are not able to maintain the books of accounts and the sales related data. Hence, they require some concession in the maintenance of books of accounts, in the maintenance of data, regarding the data integrity and all these things. So for that purpose, government has come up with a concept in GST that, Mr. Taxpayer, if you are a small taxpayer, are you not able to maintain the books of accounts, not able to maintain the data, in that case, what you can do, you just need to do one thing: pay the tax to us at a concessional rate. Pay the tax to what? As a concessional rate. And as you are paying the tax at a concessional rate, you will not be eligible to claim a single rupee of input tax credit. And as you are not claiming the input tax credit, so no need of any type of documentation for us. So this composition scheme is more or less a concessional scheme. In that case, you have to pay tax on your outward supply. You have to pay tax on your outward supply and no ITC. And the tax which has been charged on the outward supply is also a concessional rate. Okay. Now, sir, in that case, when you are saying that the composition scheme is applicable to the small scale industries, so government has decided a turnover, that if your turnover is up to this specific limit, you can go for the composition scheme. Otherwise, you have to opt for the regular scheme. So in that case, government said, if your turnover is up to 1.5 crore rupees, if your turnover is up to 1.5 crore rupees, in that case, you can go for the composition scheme. But if your turnover crosses the limit of 1.5 crore rupees, in that case, you will not be eligible to. In that case, you will not be eligible to claim the benefit of composition scheme. Sir, my voice is perfect now. Or are you facing certain issues? So Nimesh sir, I think my voice is not perfect. No issue. Okay. So if your turnover is up to 1.5 crore rupees, in that case, you can go for the composition scheme, and above 1.5 crore rupees, you will not be eligible for the composition scheme. But yes, in case of goods only, you will be eligible for the composition scheme. In case of goods only, you will be eligible for the composition scheme. So the service sector industry comes in front of the madam Nirmala Sitharaman, that ma'am, we are the service sector industry and you are saying that this scheme is only applicable in case of goods. Why we are not able to obtain this specific scheme? So in that case, madam has come up with a specific provision that if your turnover is up to 50 lakh rupees, if your turnover is up to 50 lakh rupees in case of service sector industry, in that case also you can opt for this composition scheme. Sir, this limit is based on your aggregate turnover, okay? And aggregate turnover includes your exempted supply. Now, turnover limit done. Now, sir, what will be the rate of GST which is applicable in case of composition scheme? So government is saying the rate of GST which is applicable, that is 1%, that is 0.50 CGST, 0.50 as GST will be applicable in case of composition scheme. Okay. If your turnover is 1.5, in that case, you can go for the composition scheme. Above 1.5, you will not be eligible to do so. And in case of service sector industry, if your turnover is up to 50 lakh rupees, you can go for the composition scheme. Okay. And the turnover definition includes the exempted supply. Now, rate of GST basically normally 0.50, 0.50. Now, one question is that, sir, this rate of GST is applicable in case of services as well? No. In case of services, the rate of GST, in case of services, the rate of GST is applicable 6%, 3% CGST, 3% SGST. And sir, most important, if you are opting for the composition scheme, you will not be eligible to make any interstate supply. You will not be eligible to make any interstate supply. You have to make the supply within state only. Hence, many times we are receiving the notices, okay, taxpayer has opted for the composition scheme and generating a e-way bill for outside Rajasthan or for outside state. In such a scenario, department is issuing the notice that, sir, you have opted for the composition scheme and still you have made a particular supply outside the state. So why this composition scheme is applicable for you? So whatever will be the sales which you have made during the particular period, that should be charged at the rate of regular. Hence, our taxpayer, those who have opted for the composition scheme, we should be very much careful. We should be very much careful that interstate supply should not be there. In case of goods, the rate of composition scheme 1%, 0.50, 0.50. Services 3%, 3%. Okay, you are getting the recording, so you can watch it again through the recordings. Okay. No, you cannot make the interstate supply. Now, sir, I request when the concept is going on, in that case, if you have any special query, please put it. Otherwise, don't put any query in the chat box. After completion of the topic, you can ask the queries related to that topic. Okay, so that our discussion will be in a smooth way. Sir, will discuss if the during the financial year, if your turnover crosses the 1.5 crore rupees, immediately you have to convert yourself, okay, from composition to regular scheme. Now, rate ho gaya, input tax credit, you will not be eligible to do so. Now, sir, in case of restaurant services, the special rate of GST applicable, that is 5% and no turnover limit. Okay, you can opt for the composition scheme, and from 1st of April 2025, if any restaurant wants to go for the regular scheme, in that case restaurant has to pay tax at the rate of 18% and restaurant will be eligible for the ITC. But if restaurant has opted for the composition scheme, then no ITC will be allowed. Yes, sir, you just need to define that this particular thing qualify the definition of service. So 50 lakh turnover is here. If the definition is not qualify the definition of service, in that case 1.5 crore turnover is here. Okay, so that we have to decide based on situation, scenario, it will depend. Okay, now suppose there is one person who is dealing in the goods as well as services both. Goods or services both. Okay, in such a scenario, if the portion of services is not more than, if the portion of services is not more than 5 lakh rupees or 10% of turnover, okay, that I just want to show you from the book as well. So that you can highlight it in the book itself. This is my page number 43 of composition scheme. Okay. In case of services, sir, just highlight in case of services and goods both. If the portion is 10% of turnover or 5 lakh, whichever is higher is the amount of services, in that case, yes, you can opt for the composition scheme if goods and services are both and the services portion is up to this particular amount. If the services portion exceeded this particular type of portion, in that case, you will not be eligible for the composition scheme. That thing we need to keep in our mind. Okay, but this principle will not be applicable in case of restaurant services, and the definition of aggregate turnover is also given in our book, page number 45. You can check. The turnover include the taxable supply, exempted supply, export, interstate supply, but does not include the amount on which the RCM is applicable. That is what is the point we should keep in our mind from this composition scheme. Now, composition scheme, concessional rate, output pay, you have to make the payment of taxes. Input, you will not be eligible to claim ITC. In case of goods, 0.5, 0.5. In case of services, 6%, 3%, 3%. In case of restaurant, 5% is here. Interstate supply is not allowed. Okay. And annually you have to file one annual return, that is called as GSTR4 in case of composition scheme, and this is mandatorily required. No turnover limit is here, and the due date to file this particular remit is 30th June 2000. I can say for 2024-25, the date was 30th June 2025, or for all the financial years, 30th June of the subsequent financial year will be the due date. In this particular GSTR4 return, you have to provide the state-wise details of your purchases. You have to provide the total turnover. You have to provide the summary of the taxes which you have paid. Okay. Also, if you have opted for the composition scheme, in that case, definitely we have to show our turnover to the government. So how we can show our turnover to the government? For that purpose, we have the returns. So we have the returns. In such a scenario, government has specified a return that is called as CMP08. This return is to be filed on quarterly basis, and in that particular return, we have to show the liability, the sales amount, and the applicable rate. And yes, the reverse charge mechanism is also applicable in case of composition. But if the composition dealer has availed the rented premises and paying the rent to an unregistered person, in that case RCM is not applicable, because for that purpose government has specific issued a exclusion. In the 55th GST Council meeting, government has issued the exception. Sir, turnover means 50 lakh means 50 lakh. If your turnover crosses a single rupee with that 50 lakh rupees, in that case, you will not be eligible for the composition scheme. If departmental authority will issue the notice, then you have to settle it. Okay. So now the point is that how you can adjust your turnover, that is what is the thing you have to focus on. Okay. Sir, in case of goods and services, both the rate will be applicable as per the goods rate only. So this is the complete concept of my reverse charge mechanism and the composition scheme. Okay, you can opt for the composition scheme. And one more thing, sir, suppose you have opted for the composition scheme, okay, and now your turnover crosses the specific limit, so you are planning to convert yourself into regular scheme. You are planning to convert yourself into a regular scheme. In such a scenario, whether there is requirement to file any form, yes, there is requirement to file any form. You have to provide the details to the government regarding the input. And vice versa, if you are a regular person and you are converting into composition scheme, in that case also you have to file one specific form, ITC03. So we'll discuss on all these two forms at the time of our discussion on section number 18, special circumstances. Okay, so now we have done this composition scheme, and in case of this composition scheme, we are paying the taxes on our outward supply and we are not eligible to claim the input tax credit. You can say, sir, in case of composition scheme, you are eligible for zero ITC. Am I right, sir? You are eligible for zero ITC, and number 10 includes zero. If you will see number 10, it includes zero. So section number 10, which indicates your zero eligibility to claim the input tax credit, that is composition scheme. So all the notices related to composition scheme, the recovery and the coverage of the composition scheme is only through this section number 10, and the memory technique is number 10 includes zero, and in case of composition scheme we are eligible for the zero input tax credit. So section number 10 is related to composition scheme. I think this concept is okay for everyone. Yes, sir. Sir, for commercial property is already RCM applicable. The normal provision of section 9 subsection 3 is applicable in case of composition scheme. Just one relaxation has been provided by the government, that if you are paying any rent to an unregistered person, in such a scenario RCM is not applicable in case of composition scheme. That is what is the specific relief which has been provided. Okay. No sir, no tax on URD. Sir, for RCM, no turnover is there. Section 9, subsection 3 is not applicable on the basis of any turnover. It is based on your activities that we have already done in our last class. If you have not attended the class, in that case, just once go through with the recordings. So this is my section number 10. Now, next section, a very interesting section. Sir, we all are saying that this particular product is exempted. This particular service is exempted, so we need not to pay GST on that particular product. So first thing, what do you mean by exemption? What do you mean by exemption? So here exemption means government is going to specify a particular goods or a particular services which is not liable for the payment of GST. That means the government has issued an exemption for a particular goods or services that you need not to pay GST on the supply of that particular product or service, because government has issued the notification for the exemption. Okay. Now, suppose one particular product which is exempt now can be taxable in future. Yes, but obvious, the same can be taxable in future. Now, sir, government is issuing the exemption through the notification. Who is giving the power to the government to issue the notification regarding the exemptions? So for that purpose, sir, E for exemption, E for exemption, and E for 11. E for 11, E for exemption. So your section number 11. So your section number 11 is regarding exemptions under GST. So when the government is going to issue the notification that, sir, this particular product or this particular service is exempted, that notification is to be issued with reference to the section. And section idea is very important, because whenever we'll go for the litigations, at that time, notification plays an important role, but your section plays a very important role. So section 11 is a very small section. Only one thing is mentioned in this particular section, that the government has power to issue the notification to exempt any goods or services based on these circumstances. Okay. That is my section 11. Now, government has introduced one new section, section 11A. Section number 11A. And this section is also very good. This section is saying, sir, this section is saying, suppose a particular product which is taxable whole of India, but due to the nature of industry of a specific location, and as per the based on the special practice of that particular area, there is requirement to provide certain rate relaxation, to provide certain exemptions. So government may issue that type of notification, and the power can be issued through section number 11A. So section 11 is saying that government may issue the notification and exempt any goods or services. Now suppose a particular product which is taxable, but due to the trade and industry requirement, for a particular area, if government wants to provide a relaxation, the same can be provided by 11A. Okay. Now, sir, we are starting a very important topic. Sir, multiple time based on circumstances, government is issuing the notifications. Okay. If there is a flood, in that case, government is going to issue the rate notification that the rate has certain concessions. Okay. And the same has been issued under 11A. So this is completely based on situation to situation. If you will check the CBIC website, you can find certain notifications. Okay. Now, sir, in our book, we have given the complete exemptions in a very detailed way. If you will check our book, in that case, we have included all the exemptions. Okay. Just check page number 52, exemptions under GST. Okay. I am not going to take the each and every exemption in our session, because if I will take each and every exemption, in that case it will take around 10 days. Okay, and exemptions are just readable things, that this is the product which is exempted, no technical point is there. Okay, hence I am going to skip that point, but we have given a complete list of exemption, each and everything, from the perspective of goods, from the perspective of services, and this list is completely updated as well. 20 to 25 pages we have covered. And I request those participants who are joining the session late, please join it sharp at 7 p.m. Okay. Because through this particular course, we have to learn the time punctuality, we have to learn the presentation skills. So please be on time. Sir, my internet is stable, or there is any issue in my connection? Because I think there is no connection, no issue at my end. Okay, thank you, sir. Now, we are starting our discussion on a very, very, very important topic. I require your 100% attention on the screen. Sir, we have decided that this particular activity or transaction is a supply. Okay, because it is a sale, exchange, barter, transfer, lease, rental, disposal, agreed to be disposal for a consideration in the course or furtherance of business. Okay, so we have decided it is a supply. Then after, we have also decided that this is a supply of goods or supply of services with reference to schedule number second. We have also decided that this is a composite supply or mixed supply. Okay, then after, we have also decided that the tax is applicable under reverse charge mechanism or forward charge mechanism, and we have also decided that there is any exemption or not. So now, after passing all these examinations, you can say activity to supply to supply of goods or services, to composite and mixed to forward or reverse charge, or then after exemption, now this service is a taxable, we can say. Okay, so now, if a particular service which is a taxable, in that case, question is that when we have to pay the tax on that particular supply, now this is the question. There is one question, that how we can decide the time when we have to pay the taxes, because this is very important and very crucial. Because if you have decided the time in a wrong manner, in that case, future litigation will be okay, because government will come up with an interest and penalty that you have not decided the time of supply perfectly, you have made the payment of taxes delayed, so interest is there, penalty is there. So this time of supply plays a very important role. Okay, nowadays what we all are doing, filing the returns, preparing the reconciliations, okay, focusing on to prepare the GSTR 9 and 9C, to prepare the data for the audit report, but we are not checking whether the client has decided the time of supply in a perfect way or not. And that plays a very important role, because future of your litigations will be based on this concept of time of supply, maybe. So we should prepare ourselves. Now, first I am going to share with you in a chart form, then after we'll discuss from our book as well. Okay, and I request each one of you, when we are taking any topic in a simplified language through chart, okay, after completion of the session, you just need to go through with the same chapter from our book as well. Okay, maximum of you have already received the book, and those who have placed the order delayed, they will receive the book very soon. Okay, so you just need to go through with the book, try to make certain notes. Okay, and in this book we have given multiple blank space, so when I am creating any chart in the class, you just need to put that chart in your book as well, so that you can refer it in future. Because kitne hi amendment aa jaye, your basics will not change. Now, sir,
when I am saying that I have to decide the time of supply. When I am saying that I have to decide the time of supply, that means for determination of the time of supply, there may be chances that I have made a supply of goods or supply of services. So the principle, the provisions of time of supply will be different in case of different situations. So first we'll take time of supply in case of supply of goods, time of supply in case of supply of services, time of supply in case of goods, time of supply in case of services. Now, time of supply in case of goods, time of supply in case of goods, services. Now, sir, when I am saying that I have to decide the time of supply in case of supply of goods, next question is that whether I have made the supply under forward charge or reverse charge. So time of supply principle will also be difference under forward charge, under reverse charge. Same in case of services, the time of supply may be under forward charge, may be under reverse charge. Now, different time of supply provisions are there. First thing, time of supply in case of goods, in case of forward charge. Okay, just we'll discuss. TOS in case of forward charge, in case of goods. The first, in case of forward charge, in case of goods, your time of supply will be date of issue of invoice. When you have raised the invoice, at that time, you have to pay the taxes. That means, suppose you have raised the invoice in May month. In that case, while filing the GSTR 3B of May month and while filing the GSTR 1 return of May month, you have to provide the details in the returns. Okay, that time of supply has already been decided, because before generating the invoice you cannot move the goods, and if you are not able to move the goods, so definitely you will prepare the invoice before movement of the goods, so your invoice date will be treated as time of supply. In case of services, under forward charge, in case of services under forward charge, the time of supply is, sir, suppose you have invited me for a session. You have invited me for a session in May month. Okay, May 2025, and this deal has been closed in March 2025, and you have paid me advance of 1 lakh rupees. I have received that 1 lakh rupees as an advance. I have received that 1 lakh rupees as an advance in the March month, and I have to perform my service in May month. Okay, so I have received that advance 1 lakh rupees, and as we all know that GST is applicable on account of receipt of advance in case of services. If I have to supply any goods and I have received any advance, in that case no GST is applicable. But in case of supply of services, if I have received any advances, the GST is applicable on the advance amount. Why? Why this provision is here? Why this provision is here? Because the time of supply, is saying in case of services, your time of supply is invoice or payment, whichever is earlier, I or P, whichever is earlier. So in case of services, if you have received any payment earlier, you have to make the payment of GST on the advance amount due to this time of supply principle. हम सोचते हैं कोई गवर्नमेंट ने सर्कुलर इशू किया है क्या, कोई नोटिफिकेशन इशू किया है क्या? नॉट लाइक दैट. दिस इज ड्यू टू अ स्पेसिफिक सेक्शन. Okay, next thing, forward charge, goods and services, done. In case of reverse charge for goods, sir, first I just confirm that this concept is okay, that in case of reverse charge mechanism, the recipient is going to make the payment of taxes. Supplier is not supposed to make the payment of taxes. Okay, hence the name is reverse. So sir, for land and building, if you have received then the same will be agar a title transfer, in that case no GST. If it will be a right to use transfer, yes, GST is applicable. That we have to decide first the nature, whether it is a goods, whether it is a service, and for that purpose we have created a specific universal formula. Whenever there will be a title transfer, goods; whenever there will be a right to use transfer, services. So I request each one of you, when you are attending the next session, it should be very much required that your concept related to the last session should be very much clear, because now onwards our each and every class till our 20th class, every class is linked with each other. Okay, so we should be very much careful. So in case of reverse charge mechanism, your time of supply, as recipient is making the payment of tax, so first deadline to go for the payment of taxes or to go for the determination of time of supply is receipt of goods. That is receipt date, receipt of goods date, or payment entry in books of accounts, because recipient is making the payment, so recipient is going to book the payment entry in the books of accounts, or debit from bank account, or 30 days from invoice. Whichever is earlier, that will be treated as a time of supply in case of reverse charge mechanism goods. So now suppose if you have received the goods on 12th of May, if you have received the goods on 12th of May, but the recipient has made the payment entry on 6th of June, and the amount has been debited from the bank account on 7th of June, and suppose the invoice date, is 28th of April. In such a scenario, your time of supply will be this one, or 20th April plus 30 days. You can say basically 27th of May. This one, whichever is earlier, so your time of supply will be 12th of May. But if you have no idea and you are saying that when the recipient has made the payment and books entry, in that case, if you will decide it as 6th of June, in that case, by paying that, you have to make the payment of taxes in May month, but you are paying in the month of June month, so you have to pay with interest, and future may departmental authority may come up with the penalty. So we should be very much careful. I think you have get the idea, the importance of time of supply, because situation may differ, so we have to decide it accordingly. Next, time of supply in case of services under reverse charge mechanism. So sir, when I am saying the time of supply in case of services under reverse charge mechanism, so when I am talking from the perspective of services, that means no goods is here, so no question of goods. So in that case, your time of supply will be debit entry in the books of accounts because recipient is paying, or debit entry in bank, or 60 days from invoice. Whichever is earlier, that will be treated as time of supply. Okay, suppose the payment entry is the invoice date is 24th of June, 24th of April. Client has made the payment, recipient has made the payment on 31st of July, and bank entry has been done in 1st of August. Okay, and from 24th of April, 2 months will be, you can say, 23rd of June. Okay, So whichever is earlier, that means your 23rd of June. So when you will file the June month return, at that time you have to make the payment of taxes accordingly. So sir, now there may be one question in your mind, in your brain, that sir, we have to check it for each and every client. And if we'll check each and every transaction from the time of supply perspective, in that case, how we can file the GSTR 1 and 3B return hundreds of clients in a month? So, sir, you have to check the time of supply in certain special circumstances. Okay, because if you will check normally, then you may check the bilty. Okay, and bilty date and the books of entry date is same. In that case, it is completely okay, because whichever is earlier, your bilty date is going, and you are paying the taxes accordingly. Okay, so these type of things you have to guide your client. You have to take the system of your client once in a year, and you have to check what will be the bilty date and how the client is booking that reverse charge mechanism entries. Each and every data is not supposed to check, and it is not possible to check at all. So we have to check it on half yearly basis, on yearly basis, so that we can easily identify the things, we can easily identify the loopholes, and we can easily suggest our client. So reverse charge mechanism liability is automatically presented if your supplier is registered. But if that person is unregistered and you have availed the GTA facilities, you have availed the legal facilities, in that case you have to make the payment from yourself. So at that time these principles will be applicable. So accordingly we should know the concept, and we have to decide, because RCM, कई लोगों का एक concept है that this RCM is applicable based on GSTR 2B only. Not at all. This RCM is applicable based on section 9 subsection 3, the list of goods and services. If you have booked any expenditure in your financial statement in profit and loss account, RCM is here, sir. Sir, 60 days and 30 days, this is completely a rule which has been given by the government in the law. Okay. And basically, in case of goods, there is also logic. Okay, in case of goods, maximum you may receive the goods in 30 days, but in case of services there may be chances of the provision of service. Okay, so that is what that provision was also in service tax. Dates once again repeat. Okay, so sir, I request, don't focus on the dates, just focus on the legal provision. Just focus on the legal provision. The legal provision is okay. The legal provision is receipt of goods, and the receipt of goods is 12th of May. And payment entry, because always goods receive ho gaya, then after the recipient is going to make the payment, normal situation. So suppose payment date is 6th of June and 7th of June, the person has booked the debited from the bank account, and the invoice date which has been received by the recipient, that is 28th of April. From 30 days, that is 27th of May. So what will be the time of supply? So whichever is earlier. So in that case, June is not earlier. June is not earlier. Now question is about 27th of May and 12th of May. So in that case, 12th of May is earlier. So we have to decide. So the time of supply is 12th of May. Accordingly, when we'll file the GSTR 3B return of May month, at that time we have to include this liability under reverse charge mechanism. And in case of services, debit entry, bank, or 60 days from invoice date, whichever is earlier, accordingly we have to decide the time of supply. Sir, for contract of services, so we have to decide that this is a service. If it is a service, then it will cover under forward charge or reverse charge. If it will cover under forward charge, in that case the time of supply, I or P, whichever is earlier. If it is reverse charge, time of supply will be according to the principles. Okay, so we have to decide it based on nature. Now sir, this is my time of supply in case of forward charge, in case of reverse charge mechanism of goods and services. Now suppose just take one example. I have made a supply. I have made a particular supply to Mr. Rishabh. Okay, and I have charged an amount of 1 lakh rupees and charged GST at the rate of 18% on that. So total my invoice value is 1,18,000 rupees. And I have already communicated the mechanism of the payment to Mr. Rishabh that Mr. Rishabh, you have to make the payment within 1 month from the invoice date. Okay. Suppose the invoice date is 12th of May. And I have communicated the same to Mr. Rishabh that you have to make the payment within 30 days from the invoice date. And if you will not make the payment within 30 days, in that case, from that day till the date of payment, I will charge interest at the rate of 12%. Okay. Now, suppose Mr. Rishabh had made me the payment after 3 months. That means 30 days timeline has already been done. Now Rishabh has made me the payment. There is a delay of 60 days. So as per the agreed terms, okay, I have communicated to Mr. Rishabh that Mr. Rishabh, as you have made the payment 60-day delayed, in such a scenario, you have to pay interest at the rate of 12%. Okay, so Rishabh has paid me an interest at the rate of 12%. Suppose the amount is 5,000. Now the question is that whether GST will be applicable on these 5,000 or not, because this is an interest. Sir, think it once again, sir. It is an interest. Interest is a money. Whether GST is applicable or not. Certain participants are saying no, certain participants are saying yes, certain are saying negative list, not applicable. Schedule number 3, neither supply of goods nor supply of services. Sir, no, not at all. It's not covered under schedule number 3, neither supply of goods nor supply of services. Sir, there are two types of interest available in the market. One is financial interest, another is trade interest. In case of financial interest, no GST is applicable because that interest is due to financial transactions, due to money. But in this case, this interest is on account of the trade related transactions. This is on account of trade related transactions. Hence, this interest will be treated as your trade interest, and GST will be applicable at the rate of your principal supply, because this is a part of that particular supply. So GST will be applicable at the rate of principal supply. Now, my question is that this interest I have charged after 60 days. Suppose I have made the invoice on 12th of May and I have charged that particular interest on 5th of August. I have charged that interest on 5th of August. In such a scenario, my question is that the time of supply will be for the additions. So in that case, in the time of supply provision, they have clearly mentioned that in case if there is any addition, so the time of supply will be determined according to the time of supply will be decided as per the date of addition. So in that case, I have added this amount as on 5th of August. So when I will file my GSTR 3B return of August month, at that time I have to pay the interest and I have to pay the taxation on that amount. So whenever there will be addition in a particular supply, in that case your addition date will be treated as time of supply, and accordingly you have to pay the GST. Okay, this is also one concept. Suppose in certain circumstances you are not able to decide the time of supply. We are not able to decide the time of supply. In that case, return filing date of that particular period will be treated as time of supply in which you have filed the return. If you are not able to decide, in that case, the return which you are supposed to file, you just need to file it so that the time of supply will be there. So if you are not able to decide accordingly, this is the mechanism. Sir, time of supply and 12, number 12 is an indication of time. Whenever we'll look on the watch, okay, first we'll look on the 12, okay, because center 12 और हिंदी में हम लोग बोलते भी 12 बज गए. So 12 is the indication of time. So the memory technique for the section time of supply is section number 12. 12 is the indication of time, and under GST, section number 12 is related to time of supply. So whenever there will be a concern, whenever there will be discussion on the concept of time of supply, first thing should be there in your brain that the number 12 is an indication of time. So this section related to the time of supply. Now you just need to learn section 12, section 13, section 14 in combination. So section 12 is time of supply in case of goods. Next section, section number 13 will be the time of supply in case of services. We have done those section, these two sections in our today's session. Okay, in tomorrow's session we'll cover section number 14, and which is also very interesting, which will applicable in case of change in rate of tax and determination of time of supply. Will cover around 3 to 4 practical examples, and that discussion will be very great because maximum number of litigations under GST with respect to the time of supply is due to section number 14 only. So sir, in our today's session, first we have done the recap of our last week. Then after we have started our discussion on the concept of composition scheme, section number 10. Composition scheme is a conceptual scheme. You just need to pay the tax at your outward supply. You will not be eligible to claim the input tax credit, zero eligibility to claim the input tax credit, and number 10 includes zero. So section number 10 is related to composition scheme. If your turnover is up to 1.5 crore rupees, you can go for composition scheme. In case of services, up to 50 lakh rupees. Rate of GST 1% and 6% in case of services, restaurant 5%. Then we have done our discussion on the section number 11, E for exemptions. So the power to issue the notification and to exempt a particular goods and services is come through your section number 11. And then after we have started our discussion on time of supply in case of goods, in case of services. In case of goods, forward charge; in case of services, forward charge; in case of goods, reverse charge, reverse charge. For forward charge goods, time of supply is invoice date. For forward charge services, the time of supply is invoice or payment, whichever is earlier. For reverse charge goods, the time of supply is receipt of goods or debit entry in bank or payment entry or 30 days from the issue of invoice, whichever is earlier. And in case of services, reverse charge mechanism, the time of supply will be payment entry, debit entry, or 60 days from invoice date, whichever is earlier. And if there will be any addition, in that case date of addition will be treated as time of supply. And if you are not able to decide the time of supply according to the normal provisions, in that case your return filing date will be treated as time of supply. In our next session, we'll discuss how we can determine the time of supply in case of change in rate of tax. We'll also discuss how we can decide the value of supply, because sir, now we have decided that this is the date on which we have to pay the tax. Now question is that on which value we have to make the payment of taxes. So in our next session, we'll also discuss on which value we have to pay the taxes, and we'll also cover the relevant rules to determine the value of a particular supply. Sir, interest income, if this is a financial interest that is due to the finance related transactions, in such a scenario, that will be treated as financial interest. No GST is applicable, because if it includes the money, then money is not defined as goods, so not treated as supply. But if that interest is due to any trade related transactions, then yes, GST will be applicable. GSTR for 2000 rupees penalty. Sir, financial interest has not been included in schedule 3. Just check schedule number 3. We have not included that financial interest. Okay. Financial interest is not taxable. Reason being, it is not a goods or services, because it is a part of money. Sir, Gurmeet sir, yes, interest is incurring on continuous basis, but the language which has been used by the government, that is date of addition, when the person is going to add it in the books of accounts, that will be treated as, and that will be decided when the person is going to make the payment of taxes. That will be the final date, and on that date we are going to add out in our books of accounts, so that will be treated as my date of addition. Yes, debit entry means the bank statement debit entry and the books of accounts entry. If you have given the loan and charged the interest, no GST is applicable, because this is completely a financial transaction. No trade related element is here. Yes, Gurmeet sir, that rate is applicable. Sir, petrol and diesel is a non-GST supply. GST will be applicable on a future date. Okay, this is not a exempted. For exempted, government is going. For exemptions, government is going to issue the notification. Sir, if you have not received the amount from your supplier, okay, then you have generated the invoice, so you have to pay the GST. After that, when you are receiving any payment delayed, then you are getting the interest. So government is demanding the GST on that interest portion that you are receiving from your client. Okay. Sir, exemption list is available. You can check the CBIC website. You will get the same, and also will provide you the list in soft copy. Yes, sir, definitely. Yes, Gurmeet sir, 1% is applicable because this is a composite supply. The maximum portion is on account of goods. We'll share the list for HSN code. We'll share the list for HSN code in the group. Sir, in GST, when you are receiving anything, that will always be exclusive of GST. Sir, financial interest, if there is a specific interest which is merely due to the transaction of finance. Suppose you have given me 5 lakh rupees on loan and I am paying you the interest, that will be a transaction of finance. Suppose you have supplied me a goods of 5 lakh rupees and I am not making the payment to you, I am making the payment after 3 months. In that case, when I will pay you interest for the delay. That interest is due to trade. So yes, GST will be applicable. So we have to decide it based on situation to situation. Petrol and diesels are the non-GST supply. GST will be applicable on a future date when the government is going to recommend it the same. So thank you once again for joining the live session. I request each one of you, just try to join the session sharp at 7 p.m. Commercial property for 5 years, it will be treated as right to use. So yes, GST will be applicable. Sir, in case of petrol pump, why you are claiming the input tax credit? The input tax credit, which is related to the lubes, you can claim the input tax credit for that. Other, you cannot claim the same. Sir, in case of financial interest, no GST is applicable if the person is registered under GST, as your bank is charging the interest on account of your loan. So they are not charging any GST because this is completely a financial transactions. Okay. We'll also discuss in a very detailed way about the financial and trade interest in near future. Sir, inverted duty structure will take, first we'll cover the value of supply, then after we'll cover the place of supply, then after we'll move on the refund section number 54 dil mange more. So thank you to each one of you. We'll meet tomorrow sharp at 7 p.m. Thank you once again. Bye bye. Take care. Good night. Third parties is also, sir, financial. So on case of financial interest, no GST is applicable. Thank you once again for joining the live session. Yes, sir. 5% no GST is applicable, no ITC is available for you. 18% ITC is available from 1st of April. Thank you once again. Bye bye. Good night.